Welcome to the Twisted Tentacle Inn. I'm your Innkeeper Vase Odin, and today we'll be discussing the general strengths and focuses of the 6 factions in the game. This guide is intended as a general guideline for new players who don't know where to start and would like to pick a character who more or less fits their playstyle. This is in no way supposed to be an all-encompassing guide, and in no way is intended to imply that each faction is limited to the specific specialties I outline in this video. There are many investigators who can very proficiently accomplish some things generally thought to be a specialty that is outside of their faction. So this video is mostly intended to be used as a starting point, giving you a nudge in the right direction of what the card pool for each faction is mostly geared towards accomplishing. And one final thought. This video assumes that you're at least familiar with the basic rules of the game and understand the terms that refer to the Chaos Bag, Combat, Investigation, and so on. If you're not familiar with these terms, please go through the tutorial scenario or watch one of the many excellent videos that teach you the basics on how to play. I'll link some of those videos that I recommend in the descriptions below. Let's get started. Guardian is the faction I would recommend for someone new to the game. Guardians generally specialize in killing things and protecting their teammates. Most Guardians have a naturally high combat value, and the ones who don't can get their value up with their combat-heavy card pool. Most of their zero-level allies either boost combat, do extra damage, or have abilities that benefit investigators who like combat. Their level 0 allies are generally non-unique, so at later levels you can have 2 copies of the same ally in play with the right cards. Their hand assets are all weapons, and either give your investigator a combat bonus to hit or extra damage, or both. Their non-slotted assets are all either helpful to heal others or protect them from taking damage, or help boost your stats. Their events tend to fit one of 3 types. They either heal yourself or others, or help yourself or others avoid taking damage, or take enemies for yourself and away from others, or treacheries, or assist others in many ways, including sharing resources and boosting other stats. Their skill cards tend to benefit combat, although there are some exceptions. So generally, combat and willpower are high stats for Guardians. Although there are exceptions, their card pool allows even these low stats in these two to at least be capable of holding their own with checks against either stat. And they're generally bad at evading. They're also usually slow clue gatherers. Most Guardians can at least pick up a clue here and there, but don't depend on a Guardian to be consistent at it. So who should play a Guardian? A person who loves combat and killing things, or a person who likes to help heal their allies is probably best suited as a Guardian player. If you plan on playing true solo, Guardian is one place I'd start for my first game. Another faction that's pretty great for beginners, Seekers excel in multiplayer. Seekers are the best at getting clues and drawing cards. With naturally high intellect and a card pool that accelerates their clue gathering, Seekers are what help propel the team to victory. While Guardians fend off the foes, it's the Seekers who are going to win the scenario for you. Seekers have a lot of allies to pick from. Their ally pool tends to be pretty diverse, with some granting you extra resources, some helping boost your hand size, and some helping you with the encounter deck. Most Seeker allies at level 0 are unique allies, so keep that in mind when you're upgrading your cards. Most of their hand slots and assets help in either investigation, card draw, or healing. They have no level 0 weapons for their hand slots at all. Their non-slotted assets pretty much are just there to help boost their stats. And their level 0 events fit one of 3 categories: assisting in combat or skill tests that use combat stats, card draw or card search, and cheating clues or helping with clue gathering. Their skill cards are all about getting more clues and card draw. Seekers excel at clue gathering and card draw. Their clue gathering really shines in multiplayer, where most locations tend to have more than one clue. They also tend to be the second richest faction, so you can usually afford to be a little more spendy than other factions when it comes to card resource cost. Most Seekers are usually bad at anything combat related at lower levels, so I wouldn't count on a Seeker to handle too many bad guys. So who should play a Seeker? A player who likes to be the most integral part of a group and enjoys the thrill of being the hero that saved the day for everyone else should definitely be a Seeker. A player who likes having a lot of cards in hand and always having something to do on their turn would make a great fit for a Seeker as well. Mystics specialize in breaking the boundaries set by the game mechanics. They have also evolved into a class that can be great at being generalists, with powerful spells that help in combat and clue gathering. But with great power come consequences, and most powerful Mystic cards tend to have a punishment associated with its benefit. They tend to rely very heavily on willpower, and most of their power comes from having a good willpower stat and a healthy deck full of willpower icons they can commit to tests. But their power also comes with a cost. Their level 0 allies are helpful in acquiring resources, looking at and reordering cards in a deck, and manipulating what tokens you pull from the Chaos Bag. Most level 0 allies are unique except for one, which is a very important ally that helps you find your spells. Their hand slot items at level 0 are fairly insignificant, but Mystic makes tremendous use of arcane card slots like no other class. Their arcane slots are one of the most versatile in the game. Their arcane assets help them in combat, evasion, clue gathering, looking at and rearranging the decks, and also healing. In higher levels, they even help mitigate the worst tokens in the Chaos Bag. Mystics also make good use of the accessory slot, with both level 0 cards that they have boosting their willpower and absorbing horror. And they need it, as trying to manipulate the mythos to one's bidding can lead one to easily go insane. Their slotless assets mostly are for boosting stats, but there is a card to help with resource generation. Mystics need it, as their card pool tends to be very resource intensive. Their events cards at level 0 are the most diverse of any class. They have cards that help with everything from enemy management, movement across the board, deck and chaos bag manipulation, clue gathering, and much more. The events package in a Mystic can be easily tailored to further help your specialty or to shore up some weaknesses. Mystic skills tend to focus on power and healing. Most will help boost willpower specifically. Mystics can be a very powerful class. Their vast range of abilities, chaos bag manipulation, and deck manipulation allows for some amazing feats. With the right cards, a Mystic can be above average at both combat and investigation, the two most important skills in Arkham Horror, the card game. And to an extent survivors are investigator classes that require a bit more experience to work successfully. Most Mystics need time to set up and find their spells, which can be problematic as they tend to toe the line of being dead weight without them. This can present a major problem in solo play since you are at the mercy of the encounter deck and can get overwhelmed before you're properly set up. They also play with fire very often, sometimes accumulating horror and doom to scary high levels, leaving you on the brink of defeat. If you don't know how to manage it, you can quickly get overwhelmed by a mess of your own creation. So who should play a Mystic? A player who likes to break the rules or doesn't want to be bound by them is right at home playing a Mystic. They're also great for people who want to excel at most things in the game and that the game throws at you. People who have fun managing risks and are willing to make plays that are high risk and high reward should fit right in as well. Survivors are the ultimate underdogs, able to turn failures into success and recover cards they've discarded or already played to use again and again are some of the tricks that they have up their sleeves. Survivors make the best of what they've got and arguably have more great level 0 cards than most other factions. Of their ally cards at level 0, 2 are helpful for evading enemies. One is an excellent way to draw cards and resources when you're running on empty. Their hand slot items are helpful for both combat and investigation. They have access to one of the best level 0 weapons in the game with Fire Axe, and despite their weapons generally being unreliable, they manage to be decent at combat. Their accessory slot cards help with horror mitigation and card draw, while their body slot card helps with damage mitigation. Most of their assets have very low resource cost, which makes them able to get things on the board quickly and reliably. Their non-slotted assets are mostly used for skill boost. One of them leverages the low resource cost of the faction and gives survivors a tremendous benefit for running on 0 resources. Dark Horse is so good, in fact, that many survivor decks are built around just this one card. Their event cards can generally be put into one of 3 categories. Cards that recur cards from your own or other investigators' discard piles, and this includes cards that can be played from the discard pile. Combat management and avoidance, and succeeding or being rewarded when you fail a skill check. Their skill cards tend to reward you more the more of an underdog that you are. For example, there is a skill card that gives you 5 wild icons, but you lose 1 icon for each card you have in your hand. And another one can only be played if your skill value is 2 points lower than the skill check you're attempting. Their skill cards can be quite strong in the right decks, but their limitations mean that you have to get creative to use them to their full potential. Survivors are pretty good all-around generalists. They excel in solo play and can overcome some things that others would otherwise fail at. A lot of survivors have trouble finding their place in a larger group. Most of their cards are selfish in nature, and what I mean by that is a lot of their skill cards and like healing damage mitigation cards are only usable on themselves. They also lack reliable action economy, which means they can fall behind and fall victim to the agenda deck advancing. They do have some, but other classes have far more reliable ones, whether it be mobility, clue gathering, and combat. All of this makes them tricky to build for, and it also means they tend to work best with well-tuned decks and combos. So who should play a survivor? I think a person who enjoys overcoming what feels impossible could have a lot of fun with a survivor character. Those who don't enjoy support and those who love card synergy and combos would also be a good fit for a survivor. And those who like to play solo, definitely survivor is a great class for solo. Rogues are the money class. They tend to specialize in big gamble and even bigger plays. Generalists through and through, rogues are generally stealthy characters who always seem to have a trick up their sleeve. They're jacks of all trades and can usually investigate and manage enemies, usually through evasion. They also like to win big, usually gaining benefits if they succeed a skill test by more than necessary. Definitely they are the overachievers. If you like big plays, rogues are definitely the class for you. The level 0 rogue allies are all unique. They help with resource generation and action economy. Their hand slot items at level 0 are all weapons and help them deal with minor foes. Their accessory slots at level 0 are all for card draw. They aren't quite as efficient as Seekers at it, but they don't need to be. The rogue non-slotted assets are mostly for resource generation, card draw, and stat boosting, although they do have some other handy things like horror healing. Their events are almost all for either enemy management, usually avoiding them altogether, and dumping the workload on your teammates. From dumping off a treachery for someone else to take care of or deal with, or just outright leaving a scenario and leaving everyone else to fend for themselves, the rogues can be hilariously self-serving. Despite this, though, I think they're curiously better team players than survivors are. The rogue skills tend to focus on helping get action economy and taking big risks for a big payoff. Rogues can do just about anything. They can make big plays and use their massive resource pool to help themselves win. They are arguably the best generalist class, as they can deal with enemies and investigate, especially after just a few experience points. They do lack a bit of investigative capability at level 0, but it's not terribly bad. Rogues also tend to put all their chips in one basket in a lot of plays, and if they pull an autofill token on a big gamble, they can be left scrambling for a solution. So who should play a rogue? A player who loves making big plays and doesn't like being limited by the cost of their cards would make best use of a rogue. Free actions and paying to win are a rogue staple, so those looking to play a character who can almost guarantee success on a big play will feel right at home. Also, people who like taking chances with the potential for a game-changing play would definitely like the rogue faction. Finally, big money and lots of card draw are staples of the rogue faction. Currently, there's only one neutral investigator in the game, so it's difficult to make generalizations about the faction. Add to this that Lola Hayes, the neutral investigator, can choose from 3 factions worth of cards, and that there's not really a neutral faction card pool, since really anyone can take level 0 neutral cards, and you get a faction that currently is very difficult to decipher. One thing is for sure though, the current neutral investigator is one of the most difficult investigators to play, and requires a very good understanding of player windows in order to properly play with her. I'll link the excellent video on player windows from the Whisper in Darkness YouTube channel in the description if you wish to become proficient with this aspect of the game. But let me finish by saying that I don't recommend that you play Lola Hayes or the neutral investigator in your first few games until you have the game, at least the basics, under your belt. She can be fun, but she is difficult to play with. But other than that, she can be a general powerhouse. You can build her in many ways to either specialize in combat or clue gathering or as general support, and she can do a great job at any of them once you get the hang of her investigator ability. And that does it for this new player guide to factions. I hope that this video was helpful for you, and if you have any questions or any comments about this video, please leave them down below. I'd love to hear about it, and I'd be happy to respond. If you're looking for some additional resources for learning how to play this game and some additional channels that can help you get better at the game, there are some channels that I highly recommend, and I will link all of them in the description below as well. And I hope that you enjoyed this video and found it helpful. Thank you for listening. I am Innkeeper Vase Odin. Check in anytime. I'll talk to you then.